بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين محمد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا كثيرا. My brothers and sisters, we continue with the beautiful story and the example of Abu Bakr as-Siddiq رضي الله عنه, Khalifatul Rasulillah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, the closest companion of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, the one whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala honored above all others, the one about whom Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said in the khutbah on the Thursday before the Monday on which he passed away, he said, Allah is witness that I have returned everyone else's favor, everyone's ihsan on me. I have returned everyone's favor on me except that of Abu Bakr, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will reward Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu on my behalf. Allah will return that favor to him on my behalf. This is Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu. Now, we continue the story about his role in the battles of Badr and Uhud. Badr was the first large-scale engagement between the Muslims and the Quraysh of Makkah and their allies, which took place on the battlefield of Badr, which is near Medina, on the 17th of Ramadan, 2 AH, 2nd Hijri, which corresponds to March 13, 624 AD. In the Battle of Badr, Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu was one of the guards of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam's tent, and he was entrusted with his safety. It is reported by Ibn Asakar radiallahu anhu that Abdul Rahman, the son of Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu, was with the unbelievers. He was with the Quraysh, opposing the Muslims on the day of Badr. When he became Muslim, he said to his father, "You were exposed to me on the day of Badr, and I turned away from you. I did not kill you." Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu said, "As for me, if you had been exposed to me, I would not have turned away from you." In this situation, the greatness of the faith of Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu is exemplified by the depth of his truthfulness and sincerity in preferring the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam above everyone and everything else. Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu truly applied the guidelines which are affirmed in the Quran al-Kareem and in the ahadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in the ayah of Surah Mujadila, Allah said, "La tajidu qawman yu'minuna billahi wal yawmil akhiri يُؤَادُّونَ مَنْ حَادَّ اللَّهَ وَرَسُولَهُ وَلَوْ كَانُوا آبَاءَهُمْ أَوْ أَبْنَاءَهُمْ أَوْ إِخْوَانَهُمْ أَوْ عَشِيرَتَهُمْ أُولَئِكَ كَتَبَ فِي قُلُوبِهِمُ الْإِيمَانَ وَأَيَّدَهُمْ بِرُوحٍ مِّنْهُ وَيُدْخِلُهُمْ جَنَّاتٍ تَجْرِي مِنْ تَحْتِهَا الْأَنْهَارُ خَالِدِينَ فِيهَا رَضِيَ اللَّهُ عَنْهُمْ وَرَضُوا عَنْهُ أولئك حزب الله ألا إن حزب الله هم المفلحون." Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala Jalla Jalaluhu in this ayat of Surah Mujadila, he said, which means you will not find a people who believe in Allah and the last day having affection for those who oppose Allah and His Messenger, even if they were fathers, even if they were their fathers or sons or their sons or their brothers or their kindred or their families. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "None of you truly believes until I am more beloved to him than his child, his father, and all the people." And this is in Ibn Majah. The love of Allah and the love of the Rasul alayhi salam is not a discretionary thing. This is a part of our iman. If we are Muslim, then not only are we required to love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but to love them more than we love anyone and anything else. It is something that sometimes we tend to lose sight of, and we take liberties in how we speak. This is something to guard against. The love of Allah and the love of Muhammadur Rasulullah sallallahu is not a discretionary thing. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, قُلْ إِنْ كَانَ آبَاؤُكُمْ وَأَبْنَاؤُكُمْ وَإِخْوَانُكُمْ وَأَزْوَاجُكُمْ وَعَشِيرَتُكُمْ وَأَمْوَالٌ اقْتَرَفْتُمُوهَا وَتِجَارَةٌ تَخْشَوْنَ كَسَادَهَا وَمَسَاكِنُ تَرْضَوْنَهَا أَحَبَّ إِلَيْكُمْ مِنَ اللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ وَجِهَادٍ فِي سَبِيلِهِ فَتَرَبَّصُوا حَتَّى يَأْتِيَ اللَّهُ بِأَمْرِهِ وَاللَّهُ لَا يَهْدِي الْقَوْمَ الْفَاسِقِينَ. In Surah Tawbah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala enumerated 8 things. And if you look at these 8 things, all of them are good things. Allah is not saying love Allah and His Messenger more than you love something which is haram. No, all good things. Some of them things which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in other places in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reiterated that we should treat them well and that we should have respect for them and so on. Like parents, for example. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, say to them, O Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, say to them, Qul, in kana, if aba'ukum, your parents, abna'ukum, your children, sons, in this case it means father, sons and daughters. Aba'ukum wa abna'ukum wa ikhwanukum, your siblings, your brothers and sisters. Wa azwajukum, and your spouses. Wa ashiratukum, and your extended family. Wa amwalun iqtaraftumuha, and the wealth that you accumulate and you fear a loss in it. Wa tijaratan takhshawna kasadaha, and your businesses and trades in which you fear a loss. Wa masakinu tardawnaha, and your houses and your homes and your palaces and your residences that you build and you are proud of them. You are thankful for them, you are proud of them. Ahabba ilaykum, if they are more beloved to you. Ahabba ilaykum min Allahi, than Allah, wa rasulihi, than His Rasul, wa jihadin fi sabilihi, than struggling and working in the path of Allah. Fatarabbasu, go and wait. Hatta ya'ti Allahu bi amri, until the amr of Allah, until the punishment of Allah descends on you. Wallahu la yahdil qawmal fasiqeen. Truly Allah does not guide those who are rebellious. So Allah is stating very clearly that yes, all of these things of this world, these are good for you and Allah has given them to you. These are the blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. By all means enjoy them, by all means be grateful for them, but don't lose sight of the fact that if Allah and His Rasul and the work of Islam, 3 things have been put together, right? The work of Islam. If these 3 things are not more beloved to you than the worldly blessings that Allah has given you, then Allah is not even saying, then come back. Allah is saying, get out. Allah is saying, just go away. فَتَرَبَّصُوا حَتَّى يَأْتِيَ اللَّهُ بِأَمْرِهِ, and wait for the punishment of Allah. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to save us from His punishment. And therefore, if you see the statement of Abu Bakr Siddiq Radi Allah Anhu, when his son was not a Muslim, and in this case where he was struggling in the path of Allah, Abu Bakr Siddiq Radi Allah Anhu could never have loved his disbelieving son more than he loved Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam because of his faithfulness to Allah and His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. In the Battle of Uhud, which took place the following year after Battle of Badr, the Quraysh won the battle because the archers left their place on the top of the hillock which was next to the mountain of Uhud. Now only a dozen people stayed with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam on this occasion because there was a rout, people were running away, and one of them was Abu Bakr Siddiq Radi Allah Anhu. Rasulullah once said about Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu, which is a hadith in Tirmidhi, he said, no one has helped me without me reciprocating it. No one has helped me without my reciprocating that help, meaning I have returned the favor, except for Abu Bakr, who has given me help which Allah will reciprocate to him on the day of resurrection. No one's property has benefited me to the extent of Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu's property. And if I were to take a Khalil, which is the closest form of friendship, then I would have taken Abu Bakr as my Khalil. And indeed, your companion is Allah's Khalil. Right? He says Abu Bakr Siddiq is the Khalil of Allah. which means that Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is the Khalil of Allah. So he said, then I would have taken Abu Bakr as a Khalil, and indeed your companion is Allah's Khalil, meaning he's talking about himself. He's saying that Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam himself was Allah Subhanahu Wa Ta'ala's Khalil, meaning that I am the Khalil of Allah, therefore I cannot take anyone else as my Khalil, but if I could do that, it would have been Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu. Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu anhu said, Rasulullah commanded us one day to give sadaqah, charity. And this was the time when he was collecting funds for the Battle of Tabuk. So Sayyidina Umar said, at that time I had some property. I said, today I will surpass Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, if I can surpass him any day. This was a kind of competition in goodness that the Sahaba had. They were not jealous of each other. They didn't sort of run down each other. They didn't try to, do one-upmanship in a negative way. Their competition was for khair, was for barakah. So he said, I had some property, and I thought to myself, I'm going to sell this and give it in charity, and this will surpass Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu. So he said, I therefore brought half of my property, the value of that. Rasulullah asked him, what did you leave for your family? And I replied, the same amount. What I have brought here, I have left the same thing for my family. And then he said, Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu brought everything he had. Everything. And Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam asked him, what did you leave for your family? He said, I left Allah and His Messenger Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam for my family. And he said, I left Allah and His Messenger for my family. Now, this is Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu. And Sayyidina Umar radiallahu anhu says, after that, I said, I will never compete with you in anything. He said, I can never beat you in anything. And this is in Surah Abi Dawud. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help us to understand the beauty and the greatness of the Sahaba so that we can try to emulate at least some things in our life. Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu had also liberated many slaves because he felt compassionate for them, he felt sorry for them, he wanted to earn the rida of Allah, where in Islam it is hugely recommended to free slaves. Now, according to some sources, he purchased and freed 8 slaves, 4 men and 4 women, by paying 40,000 dinar for their freedom. Now, dinar is a gold coin, so 40,000 gold coins for their freedom. This is a huge fortune. And Bilal bin Rabah, radiallahu anhu, one of the most loyal and trusted companions of Rasulullah sallallahu, was one of the slaves that Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu freed from slavery. When Rasulullah sallallahu passed away in 11 Hijri, 632 AD, Rabiul Awwal, it was the month of Rabiul Awwal, many people among whom was Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu anhu refused to believe that he had died. Sayyidina Umar, we here know the story, he literally pulled out his sword, and with a naked sword in his hand, he was walking up and down in Masjid Nabawi Sharif and saying that if anyone says that Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is dead, I will cut off his head. There was the grief manifested itself in different ways. Some of the narratives of that day, people said some people, like Sayyidina Uthman, completely shut down. He said all he could do was cry. And he sat in the corner and he wept and he wept and he wept and he just couldn't do anything else. Some people secluded themselves in their houses. They didn't come out of the house. Some people like Sayyidina Umar went the other way, which is, they got very emotional, very passionate, very angry almost. And he said, if anybody said, Sayyidina Umar said, he has gone like Musa alayhi salam used to go to meet Allah on the mountain top for 40 days and so on. So this is how Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam has gone to meet Allah, and he will come back. And if somebody says he is dead, he said, I will chop off his head. So when Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu came, that day, subhanAllah, it was an amazing day. I have mentioned this in my lectures on the Seerah. Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam that day looked as if he was almost completely recovered or recovering, well on the way to recovery. The Sahaba saw him at Salat al-Fajr, they saw him looking into the masjid. They said it was like a light was shining in the masjid. They said as if the full moon had come and descended into the masjid. They were so happy, everybody was very happy. Alhamdulillah, Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam's illness is over and he is going to come back in full strength, and this was the Monday. So Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu, he had two families. His one family, his wife lived next to Masjid Nabawi Sharif, and the other wife lived on the outskirts of Medina. So since Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was ill, Sayyidina Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu never left his side. He used to be there the whole time. But that day, because he looked well and he looked like he was recovering, Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu requested permission to go and visit his other wife, who he had not seen for many days. And Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam gave him permission. He said, go. So he had gone. And that is where he received news of this passing away of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So he rushed back and he came into the house. Says Aisha Siddiqa radiallahu anha was sitting there, his daughter, the wife of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, our mother. He came into our house. He looked at Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. He kissed him on the forehead and he said, you are as beautiful in death as you were in life. And then he came into the masjid and Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu narrates that when he came into the masjid, Sayyidina Umar was speaking to the people and he was saying all these things of, he is not dead and so on. Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu said to him, sit down, Umar. But Sayyidina Umar did not sit down. He said to him twice, sit down. But he did not sit down. Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu started his khutbah. He praised Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and he sent salam on Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And then he said, فَأَمَّا بَعْدُ, to proceed, if anyone amongst you used to worship Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, then know that Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is dead. Then know that he is dead. قَدْ مَاتْ. But if you used to worship Allah, then Allah is alive and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will never die. And then he recited this ayat of Surah Al-Imran, وَمَا مُحَمَّدٌ إِلَّا رَسُولٌ قَدْ خَلَتْ مِنْ قَبْلِهِ الرُّسُلُ أَفَإِمْ مَاتَ أَوْ قُتِلَ انقَلَبْتُمْ عَلَىٰ آقَابِكُمْ وَمَنْ يَنْقَلِبْ عَلَىٰ عَقِبَيْهِ فَلَنْ يَضُرَّ اللَّهَ شَيْئًا وَسَيَجْزِي اللَّهُ الشَّاكِرِينَ. He recited this ayah where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is not but a messenger. He is only a messenger. Other messengers have passed on before him. So if he was to die or be killed, would you turn back on your heels? Meaning, would you turn back to disbelief? Would you leave Islam? And he who turns back on his heels will never harm Allah at all in the least. But Allah will reward the grateful. Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu, Abdullah bin Abbas radiallahu anhu, he says, by Allah, it was as if people never knew that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had revealed this ayah until that time. Till Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu recited it, and all the people took it from him, and I heard everyone reciting it. Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu anhu said, my legs could not support me any longer and I fell down. At the very moment of hearing him recite this ayah, declaring that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam had died. And this is in Bukhari, Sahih Bukhari. You know, this is, we have to put ourselves in this position, right? And see, these are the challenges of leadership. What do you do? How do you deal in a situation like this? Right? How do you deal in a situation like this? Where the very foundation of everything that held up the whole citadel has gone. And Abu Bakr Siddiq's, his greatest achievement is how he rose to that situation. The people debate about whether he should have been the first Khalifa or not and so on. This incident alone is enough to show that there could be no one other than Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu who was fit to be the first Khalifa. Because if you think about this, nobody took this stance. They were all there. And it's not to criticize any of the Sahaba. I'm just saying that Sayyidina Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu was wiser, superior, closer to Allah and His Rasul than all of them. They were all there. Anyone could have said what Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu said. Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu did not say anything different or anything new or anything that only he had been inspired at that time to say. He recited an ayat of the Quran which they all knew. And he stated the fact. He said, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has passed away. Allah does not die. If you worship Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he is dead. If you worshipped Allah, then what are you grieving about? What have you lost? The grief, of course. Anas bin Malik radiallahu anhu said, I was witness to the 2 days. He said, I was witness to the brightest day in Medina, the day when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam entered Medina, and I was witness to the saddest day, the darkest day, and that is when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam passed away in Medina. Now, after the passing away of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu was unanimously accepted as his successor. And that's why he got the title of Khalifatul Rasulillah. Now we know the incident where Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu and Sayyidina Umar, Sayyidina Ali, Al-Abbas bin Abdul Muttalib and others, the closest relatives of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, were busy and engaged with preparing the body for burial, for digging the grave and so on. There again, Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu was the one who advised them. They came to him and they said, how is he to be buried? And what is to be done? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then inspired, and he said, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, the Anbiya are buried where they die. So he will be buried in his house. They asked him, is he to be bathed? Do we take the clothes off and put a new coffin? He said, no, he will be bathed over his clothes. He will not be disrobed. And these are the special considerations for the messengers of Allah. And then when he was outside, somebody came and said to him, and Sayyidina Umar radiallahu anhu was with him, said, look, they go to the Ansar, because there is a discussion and an argument happening there about who will take charge after Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This also shows us the importance of leadership, how critically important it is to have a leader in any situation in the Ummah. So they went there. And when they went there, they in one particular place, they found there was discussion happening, maybe almost like an argument about who should take charge, who should be after the passing of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, who should be the leader. And to make a long story short, there were different discussions and so on and so on. And the Ansar put up, the people of Medina, they put up their arguments, and the Muhajirun, and there was Sayyidina Umar was there, Sayyidina Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu was there. And Sayyidina Abu Bakr ibn Jarrah radi Allah anhu was there, and so on, and others from the Muhajirun, and they put up their arguments. Finally, Abu Bakr Siddiq radi Allah anhu, he took Sayyidina Umar's hand in one of his hands, and he took Abu Ubaidah radi Allah anhu, who Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam called him Aminul Ummah, the trustee of the Ummah. And he held up their hand and he said, choose any of these, this will be acceptable. Sayyidina Umar radiallahu anhu released his hand, and he took the hand of Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu and raised it, and he said, I give my bayah, I swear my allegiance to you, Abu Bakr. And he said to the people, who among us will accept that he is the Imam, that the person is the Imam and Abu Bakr is the Ma'mur, is praying behind him? Will you accept this? People said, Ya Billah, said, of course not. He is our Sheikh, he is the, he is our elder, he is the person with wisdom, he is the person Rasulullah chose. Sayyidina Umar said this, he said Rasulullah chose him to lead Salah for 5 or 6 days before the day he passed away. In one case, Sayyidina Abu Bakr was not there, radiallahu anhu, and Sayyidina Bilal, when he called the adhan, Sayyidina Abu Bakr was not there, so Sayyidina Bilal said to Sayyidina Umar, you lead the Salah, because this was the hierarchy of the Sahaba, which everyone knew and understood, that after Rasulullah comes Abu Bakr, and after Abu Bakr comes Umar, radiallahu anhu. So Sayyidina Bilal said, lead. When Rasulullah who was in his room, he was in his house, he was lying down, and he could hear all that was going on. When he heard the voice of Sayyidina Umar raised in Salah, when he said Allahu Akbar, Rasulullah said, Allah and his Nabi and the believers will not accept anyone other than Abu Bakr as the Imam. Sayyidina Umar got very upset with Sayyidina Bilal. He said, you put me up to this thing. Sayyidina Bilal said, no, it's not my fault. I did what was understandable, what is normal, what everyone accepts, which is that after the Rasul alayhi salam comes Abu Bakr, and since he was not there, it's you. We have the dalil also of this lady who came to Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and asked him about a particular matter. Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, come tomorrow. Inshallah, I will tell you. So the woman said, if you are not here, meaning supposing you have died or something, or you are not there for whatever reason, if you are not there, what must I do? He said, go to Abu Bakr. She said, if Abu Bakr is not there, he said, go to Umar. So Sahaba knew this. So therefore, when Sayyidina Umar raised his hand and he said that who among us is willing and accepts that he should lead Salah and Abu Bakr should pray behind him, and they said, A'udhu Billah. They said, A'udhu Billah. They said, no, we don't accept. So he said, therefore, he is our Imam in Salah and he is our Imam in the world. This is something we have forgotten, because we are used to hiring Imams for a salary and treating them like our servants. You order the Imam, oh, do this, do that. The Imam is not your servant. The fact that you are giving a salary is neither here or there. I am a great believer in the fact that Imams should not even take a salary. But people have their circumstances. The Imam, the true Imam of the Muslims, was the Khalifa of the time. He was the king, he was the Sultan. He was not just the Imam of 2 rakat of Salah. He was the Imam of the whole life of the Muslims. His responsibility was not only with 2 rakat of Salah. His responsibility was the welfare of the Muslims as a people. So this is the thing that we learn from Rasulullah and Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu. Nabi Sallallahu always used to use Salah as an example for the whole of life. Take his famous statement in Hadith Jibreel, which we all know or should know, where they asked him, when Jibreel Islam asked him, Umal Ihsan, Ya Rasulullah, and Nabi Sallallahu said, أن تعبد الله كأنك ترى فإن لم تكن ترى فإنه يراك. He said to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as if you can see Him, and if you cannot see Him, know that He is seeing you. Now, if anyone tells me or tells you that this applies only to Salah, then it means that this person has not understood Islam. This applies to everything in life. We worship Allah as if we can see Him. We do business as if we can see Allah. We drive on the road as if we can see Allah. We behave at home, in the public place, in our jobs, in our responsibilities, in our entertainment, in our relaxation. In every life, part of life, we are supposed to behave as if we are seeing Allah. And we know that even though we don't see Allah, Allah sees us. وَهُوَ مَعَكُمْ أَيْنَمَا كُنْتُمْ. He said He is with you wherever you are. To have this awareness, this idrak in our lives and our actions, this is the essence of Islam. So Allah is with us wherever we are. And this is what we learn from the examples that Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam used to give as Salah as an example for the rest of life. So in the case of Khilafah, in the case of nominating a successor, when people say he did not nominate Abu Bakr specifically, yes, that is true in the sense that he did not write or he did not speak and say Abu Bakr will be my successor. He did not utter these words, but by his actions, by the fact that he gave him the imamat, he gave him his position of leading prayer, which is the number one important thing in a Muslim and Muslim's life and in Islam. He gave that to Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu. This was an absolutely clear indication that he intended Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu to succeed him and to be the leader of the Muslims after he passed away. Wallahu alam, and Allah knows best. Wa sallallahu ala nabiyil kareem wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in bi rahmatika ya arhamar rahimin.